It'll show us, and we are live.
Yay!
We are live. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Wellness Wednesday, brought to you by artists striving to end poverty. I'm Dr. Keith Bell, one of your hosts. Wellness Wednesday is where we bring professionals of the healing arts together with the creative arts to support wellness in the overall community. Normally, my co-host is Mary Mitchell Campbell. She is not going to be here today because she, as they say in the South, is without power. So I hate that term because everybody who knows Mary Mitchell knows that she has plenty of power, but she is without electricity and she is without internet. So I have a special co-host with me today. We have Austen Sora. Yay! Austen is a developmental associate with Artists Striving to End Poverty. She's a professional dancer, and she was recently on tour with Phantom of the Opera. Welcome, Austen.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm so excited for our chat today.
Yes, and we have a special guest, somebody I've known forever. We have Scott Putman. I got your name right because I never call you by your actual name. Scott is a professor of dance and choreography at Virginia Commonwealth University. He's the founder of Amaranth Dance Company and the creator of the Elemental Body Alignment System, which is a movement system that we'll be talking about later because he uses it to combine dance with healing. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you guys today, with the two of you. It's wonderful.
And Austen. So I'm going to tell you how we brought you two together. So Mary Mitchell and I decided we wanted to put you two together on an episode because Austen posted, I think it was a week ago, it was either a week ago or 2 weeks ago, you wrote a post on Facebook. It was a beautiful post, and I think you expressed what a lot of artists are feeling right now, especially performance artists. So I'm going to read your post. So this is what Austen posted. So she posted, quote, "Over the past few weeks, I've had little motivation to dance. And to be honest, I felt guilty about it. I've always thought dancers need a dance in their lives. Doesn't mean I'm a fraud. So I thought about it. To be dancing in any place that's not a studio or theater feels like a reminder that those places aren't available to us. Most days I'd rather not dance than to be reminded of the uncertainty of the theater industry and the world. In many ways, dance is an escape, but lately it feels more like a reminder of the inescapable. Dance is fleeting, and lately my motivation to dance has been fleeting as well. But yesterday I went outside and took up space. For just a moment, I felt expansive and free, and I felt like myself. It's not ideal to be dancing in sneakers in the playground of my elementary school, wondering what people will kick me out of and play basketball, but for a brief moment, none of that mattered. I get goosebumps when I think of the day I'll be able to set foot in a studio again. Until then, I'm choosing to be gentle with myself, whether or not I feel motivated to dance, and to relish the moments when I do." So you posted that, and you did a beautiful dance in a playground. And when I read that, I took it to Scott. And we've been talking about this. This is one of the reasons we founded Wellness Wednesdays, because we wanted to provide inspiration and wellness to artists. So I want you to tell us a little bit about why you posted that, what it meant to you, and then I want you two to dialogue, and we're going to see where this goes because it's going to bring up a lot.
Well, I had been feeling so many different things kind of for the first few months of the pandemic, not really realizing that I was feeling them, because there's this whole part of me that really, really missed dancing so deeply and just moving every day and having that kind of part of my routine and part of my everyday life. But then there was another part of me that just didn't feel like dancing. And it was weird to me to feel both things at the same time. And, the video that I took was kind of, maybe I had danced like 2 or 3 times before that in what has it been, like 4 months. And that's like the longest I've ever gone without dancing in my life. And it was just a weird thing. And so I kind of thought about it a little bit more, and I had been journaling about it and writing and trying to get my thoughts onto paper. And then I kind of, wanted to share it out there just to kind of see if I was alone in feeling that. And the response that I got back was kind of overwhelming. And a lot of people, were saying that they felt the same way and hadn't really been able to put it into words. And so I'm happy to have been able to connect with people in that way. And it's still something that I'm grappling with every day.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, it was really beautiful, Austen. The post and your ability to convey sort of your voice through your movement. And one of the things that when I saw your post and when I hear you talk about it is dancers. We've been in training our whole life, and so it's kind of a lifestyle. You learn this way of living. And just recently, I posted something on learn time. Right, we tend to exist in this model of learn time, of learn behaviors, of learn patterning, right? And we often forget that there is our time, that our time is necessary. And I mean that in that, who are we in not only this time right now, but who are you within that spectrum of learn time, when you're learning new choreography, when you're doing a new show, when you're on tour with ensembles, right? Who are you in, who is the voice that is the dancer that animates the art, right? And I think sometimes as dancers, we forget about that because we have been conditioned, if you will, in our training modalities that this is the way we're supposed to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that there's only one way to be a dancer. And
Right.
that's so singular when there's so many opportunities for more expression, for inclusivity of ways of moving, for being more conscious and aware of how to exist as a whole person
Mm-hmm.
that happens to be a person who loves movement, who is passionate about dance, and who is so vitally important to the performing arts.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that duality that you're talking about, I think that we can expand it to not be a duality, but including all of that to be more conscious and more aware of and compassionate, like you're talking about, self-care, to how we are being present in our field as a
Yeah.
dancer, as a dance maker, as a dance instructor, teacher. These are questions I think that are positive, that we're asking ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and
And
really be
something,
springboard for incredible change on all levels.
yeah, and something that kind of strikes me in what you're saying about time is that I think about how dancers in general and just artists, um, especially as professionals, your whole life you're very goal oriented, and you're striving from when you're a kid to get cast in that show, and then to like maybe make the junior company or whatever it is, and then get into college, and then get into a company and get into a show, and whatever it is, you're always kind of working towards that next kind of stepping stone in your journey. And it's very rare to just kind of step back and just dance for the sake of dancing without any kind of opportunity to perform in a more traditional sense that in the foreseeable future. So
Right.
that's kind of a new relationship with dance.
Absolutely. And I think it's a good question to be understanding how valuable what your value is as a dancer, regardless of whether you're moving or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have immense value whether you have an audience,
Right.
right? Reflecting that value. You have value in the sense that you're moving in your studio, or in your case, in your post, you have incredible value to that sacred space, which happens to be a playground, a non-traditional performance venue. That
Mm-hmm.
has value. You filling that space, you animating that space with not only your physical movement, but also your spirit, yeah, and your voice. Like, those things are crucial to being okay with saying, oh, I am an incredible being. I am so valuable, especially at this point in time. And that even though our systems of expression and or our venues are changing, that doesn't mean that we aren't incredible artists still, right? That we are continuing to evolve, and your value is just unquestionable, undeniable, and so necessary.
Yeah. Yeah, and I remember I had a teacher once who, you just reminding me of this, who said to the class, "You have the power to change a room," and that doesn't necessarily just apply to a dance studio. That's as a human being.
No, yeah, and one of the things that I admire about Scott, because I've known you now as a teacher of dance for 19 years, is one of the things you do in the university setting is you break down structure. You break down what people have been taught in the past, and you help your students realize that a lot of it is confinement. And so can you talk a little bit about how you work with dancers to recognize the boundaries that they've been taught so that they can break free from those boundaries and be whole?
Yeah. So for those of you that don't know, the Elemental Body Alignment System, EBIS, as we refer to it, is a structural re-education system that's developed of exercises that are helping to transform your understanding, your relationship to your body, and how it functions. Like it's functional mechanics, right? You understand how things happen. And oftentimes, and Austen, you can attest to this, that we are always having an end result or a goal, as you were stating before, or this is how something is done. We learn in sort of a two-dimensional, because we're relating to a mirror often, a two-dimensional field, when we are really existing in a three-dimensional plane and space. So one of the things is that the mind and our eyes deceive us often, right, in terms of what we're perceiving. And we don't actually learn from a sensorial place, we learn from a place of imitation. Right? And that it's this sort of, oh, I hope I get it this time, or I hope this time it's right, as opposed to, this is what it feels like. This is how to activate and animate the body in a way to actually achieve the technical request, right? The body's able to really translate what that is physically. And so in the first year, we take a great deal of time, the entire year, I teach the system, right? The level 1 and the level 2 EBIS work. And that asks so many questions about dancers and allows them to create a new relationship with their body, and not what dance is, but how a body does dance. Meaning, and there are so many bodies in a room, it takes in consideration all bodies, right? And that all bodies are capable of activating, let's just use a concept of external rotation. The how do you? So you're not in class saying, externally rotate your legs, turn out your legs, right? You have no neuromuscular connection to the 6 deep lateral rotators to actually do that, just hearing it. So we have to understand, what are the sensations that are required? What does the body need and holistically need to activate a structurally supportive and sound technique, specifically external rotation, so that you are tracking your knees, that you are taking care of your hips. The knee is maintaining its alignment, and the ankle joint is free to get maximum flexion and depth for propulsion. And so you've got all these things that we're discovering, exploring. However, what happens oftentimes in training is that how we perceive ourselves, how the ego perceives our place or station in the world, like in class, like you get students coming and they're great students and they're incredibly talented, but there are so many things of deepening and expanding their understanding that sometimes the ego blocks us, and we don't realize that, oh, I'm actually blocked, energetically blocked in the sequence of neuromuscular firing that's causing a workaround that has the potential of creating an injury, right? Taking me out of that which I love, and then creating more energetic blockage that compounds and removes us, or our ability to do actually what we love. So it's kind of, I talk about it as an untangling, right? An untangling and a combing of the musculature, a untangling and rewiring of how we perceive our bodies and the potential of our bodies. Because once students start to realize, I can dance and achieve these said technical requests, these proficiencies, and be incredible at them and have no pain, wow, this is great. This is a whole new pathway. It's a whole new pattern, right? A whole new world. It's opening for people, and it changes, it transforms, and then they understand how they can empower themselves to continue to work sensorially. And as you were talking about, fill a room, right? You fill a room by animating the body from within, yelling at the room, banging the room, right? You fill it with the animation of your body, and your voice lives within that space.
Right.
And that's what people are drawn to. That's what people say, oh, did you see that, Austen? Oh my gosh, when she did that turn and then she did that beautiful développé, did you see how beautifully expressed that was? Right? And it's just like they then have an invitation to move as well, because they are moved. And I think it's a really beautiful thing. Yeah, to be welcome to move is to be welcome to healing, to be welcome to connection. And connection is healing. That openness and that transference of information, it changes the way we understand dance, the body in dance, and our potential.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I wanted you to talk a little bit about that, because it brings together, Austin, what you were saying, Scott, what you were saying, how um, you weren't moving because you were constricted in your belief that you needed to be in a studio,
Mm-hmm.
or you needed to have an audience, or you needed to be on stage. But part of that is your training, and it's training your mind and your body. And so the mind gets stored in the body, and the body becomes constricted and restricted as a mover. And when you learn techniques that actually move your body in a different way, it expands the mind. And so what I like about Scott's work is when he takes people from this one way of viewing movement and dance and showing you other ways, then it opens the mind, the body, and the spirit. It's holistic healing, which is kind of is what you did in that parking lot. You expanded physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, and you touched so many people. That's why I thought the post was so beautiful.
Right. Yeah. And I really like, Scott, what you were saying about the difference between learning from learning to, I guess, recreate a shape and recreate what something looks like, as opposed to really feeling the
Mhm.
movement in your body. And I think that, you know, if you watch a dancer or even experience dance, those are the moments that you are very touched by movement, because it's coming from such a real, genuine place, as opposed to being put on. And it's just there's freedom, and you know, I really love that approach. I think that's really beautiful.
Well, it's empowering. It's empowering for all voices to fill the room, right? It's empowering to recognize that it's not wrong to move these ways. What really is important is to be connected to the ways in which you move, the
Right.
way in which you express. And that is so much more inclusive to everybody being together to create art, to
Mm-hmm.
create dance, as opposed to you have to do the replication of this, and that's the only way to go about it. But there are so many of us, and I think we can always ask ourselves, and what else can we do here at this moment, and how does this feel, and how can I experience this in a way that is so satisfying I can't hold back the joy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we do it. That's why dance, we just love to move, right? We love to move. We love a body moving through space. I
Mm-hmm.
think dance is this training of the body to artfully and gracefully fall through space. That's all we're doing, is we're redefining what falling means and how to do it in such a graceful and gracious way to protect ourselves, to shape and craft space and time, and to be able to share that with audiences. And sometimes it's within a story, sometimes it's abstract, sometimes, you know, the medium can be so many different things, but ultimately the body, a healthy training falling body of light through space, is really such a beautiful, beautiful, touching thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if it's falling without any sort of added judgment or hesitation or anything like that, then that's even more beautiful too. And to
Yes.
be able to unlock that, I think you have something very special there, to be able to share that with students and anyone you teach. I think that's really important.
Yeah. Well, I think that is also, students need to realize that, and I quote this all the time, it's a thing that I say, is momentum favors the willing, right? And we use momentum in dance a lot. But if we get in our own way, we break that momentum, which in terms of, you know, and Keith, you can speak to this in terms of traditional Chinese, you know, medicine. When we create a blockage for ourselves, you know, there is dis-ease. The ease of movement becomes obstructed, right? And the same is true in dance. And oftentimes we're always tripping ourselves, if you will, making ourselves stumble as opposed to graciously fall, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that understanding that we can be with momentum, and momentum will eventually carry you.
And you know, you said a lot there, because as you said, in Chinese medicine, we say qi follows thought, or energy follows thought. So wherever you put your focus, the energy is going to go. So if you're focusing on stumbling or your blockages, or self-judgment, then that is going to create stagnation, which is going to create a stumbling. But right now, kind of as dance is a metaphor, you know, what we're going through in this, as we've been saying, triple pandemic, and people are secluded, you know, the people who are being healthy, because this is wellness, are the people who are continuing to move physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. They're embracing the change. And for you two, as both of you as teachers, you're now having to embrace a whole new way of teaching because you're teaching students virtually. I want to hear from both of you. How are you adapting?
Um, I,
Austen?
I'll say I am really, really inspired by all the students that I've been teaching. I think, first of all, they're going through so much with having I teach a lot of high school students, so having their school have been uprooted and everything, and their dance training also. I'm really inspired by their persistence to keep training. But it's definitely different not being in the same space as the people that you're moving with. I think that dance is such a communal experience, but in nature. And so that's definitely been a huge adjustment to have to do it virtually and to not be in the same space, which has been definitely a challenge. But I'm, again, really inspired and impressed by everyone who continues to, want to learn and want to push themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. There's definitely a communal sadness, if you will, because dance does happen in community. It happens individually training, but we usually do it in community, right? We do it together. And so I think dancers are super affected by the isolation that's happened because we don't get that exchange. We don't get that touch. Oftentimes we're very tactile with one another. Just in terms of partnering and just general things, but being in proximity, energy creates energy, and just that environment in the room really is important. It's an important element, and it has been sort of taken away. But as you were saying, we're redefining what community is in these new spaces, in these new mediums, and learning, and this is the key for me, learning how to be a healthy community member in these mediums. Right, and also learn to be, because I love being in the studio, and I'm a big hands-on, not to manipulate, but to tap. I tap my students. I brush my students. I do these tools, if you will, to help them to animate or activate certain musculature. And that's gone. It's hard to, I can't tap the screen, and
Well, you can.
Well, I can, but did you feel that? But it's for me, learning how to, because I got to a floor patterns series yesterday, and it's like, it's so complex, right? That again, that idea that we were talking about earlier about this two-dimensional sort of field, how do you get the incredible sequencing that's necessary for this particular movement series? And so it's a challenge, and I'm realizing, gosh, I'm not really good at that, right? I need to figure out, I need to relearn how to demonstrate, to show, to slow down, right? We tend to just speed through everything. How do I help myself do my best teaching, explaining, and it's got to change. It's got to change in these mediums. It's to think that we can just go on as normal is not true. And so asking questions and being okay as a community to slow down, right? It's okay. Let's take our time to investigate this movement. And even it might be gesture related, then let's take our time to explore. And I think it's such an important thing to acknowledge for us in this new medium, that maybe we need to slow down. Maybe the same time frame isn't working for us anymore, right? It has worked in the past, but what questions do we need to ask ourselves? And for me as a teacher, the learning curve is steep and quick. And how do you be vulnerable as an instructor? Because a lot of times people look to you for information and answers, but I'm not a technologically, savvy kind of guy. I live in the body, and that's where I love to be. And so in this new medium, I have to figure out how to make that congruent. How can I still be in the body and yet take the time to share and bring other people through the body, through this medium. And I think it's a challenge, not that we can't succeed, because dancers are incredibly resourceful, intuitive, and smart.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because usually, if you go take a ballet class for an hour and a half, that's an hour and a half that you're away from technology. That's kind of why I love it.
Right.
And so it's so interesting to have to use technology as the medium to be teaching these things now. So, but I agree that dancers are incredibly resilient and resourceful. So I'm excited to see where this kind of leads to, and how the dance world is going to look on the other side of this.
Yeah, and to bring it back to wellness and health for all of us, is when we're in times like this, it's really empowering and important to be curious, because there's no negativity or positivity to curiousness. Just being curious allows you to be open so that you can change by what's occurring. And that's what I'm hearing you now say, Austen, because the first post, you're asking yourself questions like, am I a fraud? Kind of, did I make the right decisions? And now you moved your body, which I think was very important. And now you're open. I mean, you're even saying, both of you are saying, I may not be savvy technically yet, but I'm open to see what happens.
Right.
And I'm kind of worried about the students. What would both of you say to the new freshman coming in that wants to be a professional dancer? Austen, what would you say to that person?
Wow, that's a great question. I think I would say, first of all, to just be really proud of yourself, because I think to have gotten this far in this journey, in this situation, is incredible. There have been so many hurdles that they've had to overcome just to have gotten to day one of the first day of school. And so I just think, being proud of yourself and recognize that you've already accomplished a lot is just, a starting point. And just to know that you are resilient and you can overcome whatever you're facing, and you can use dance as a tool for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, Austen, with that. And I would also say a lot of it has to do with what you already presented, Keith, is this idea of curious, continuing to ask questions. What if? What if? What if? When we approach learning dance from possibility and potential, we are open to who we can become, right? And I think that that's what I would encourage for all these first-year students, these new students coming into whatever experience, is how is it that you can stop for a moment and ask questions about what's possible. Maybe I can't, the expectations that I have in my normal dance experience now have to transform because they're going to look a little bit different. They're going to feel a little bit different. But what if this can make this so much more understandable, and I can create a new relationship? So what are the new relationships, new inroads, opportunities that you're creating for yourself by having to move in a roundabout way to get to your end result and goal, right? And how curious can we all be as a community, and saying, well, what if we did this? Well, what if we tried this? What if we slowed down? What if we took this into consideration? Because really, in order to welcome all voices, we have to, with curiosity, with faith, and with belief in ourselves, that we can open that spectrum, open that field to create new, right? To become new. We are going to change. We are in the moment of transformation. And how we embrace it and welcome it with curiosity is going to be quintessential in our success.
I have a feeling you're going to be giving that lecture a lot over the next 2 weeks as the freshmen are coming in.
Well, it's scary for them. I mean, think about it. They're coming into a whole new world, a whole new environment, and an environment where safety is key, right? On so many levels. There are so many uncertainties. So there's going to be a lot of time that we're going to need to spend on saying, what if? How are we going to do this? How are we going to do this together? Not me telling you this is what you're going to do, but how are we going to do this? How are we going to create new ways of dialoguing, new ways of assessing, right? And encouraging participation and engagement in ways that maybe we've never done before, right? And all of us learning to do that together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have to thank you for saying that, Scott, because I'm recognizing in this moment that I have been very resistant to change. And I think that's a lot of where my lack of motivation comes from, is that, it's that judgment, it's that resistance. And to kind of reframe that and think, oh, what an exciting time. Look at all the opportunities for growth and for learning and for change. I think that, I just felt myself like open up a little bit more, because that's just it's just a wonderful way to look at it. And as an exciting time as opposed to a scary time.
And here's the thing, we don't even know all of the exciting opportunities coming because we're so conditioned in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to bring, so I was thinking about this today, this morning, Scott, because you teach and you practice the importance of movement and how important that is, because we are bodies of movement. Yet I know you have a daily practice of sitting in stillness. Can you?
Yes, I will talk about that, because I think, I talked about, the learn time, I talk about our time, and there's this also the space of timeless, right? When you sit in a quietude, because we're never still, our bodies are in constant motion, even if we perceive ourselves to be still. But there is still energy moving through us. We're still relating to the universe. We're still relating to all kinds of different elements that are going on at an unconscious, conscious, and unconscious level. Your heart never stops beating. It's in constant motion. It is what gives you life. So we're never really still. Even sleeping, when our consciousness has shifted, we are still never still. We're repairing. We're healing, right? We are processing, both intellectually through our dreams and also physically through everything that's going on. So in slowing down to a sitting practice, yes, we're able to say, okay, I'm gonna slow down and allow myself the time and space to move again. It's like honoring the extremes of movement and allowing us to sort of quiet ourselves, to take care of our spirit, and to reboot again, if that makes any sense. That's my little...
something to say. Something to say. Yeah, so the reason I wanted to share that is because in Eastern medicine, Austen, and you probably know this, but I don't know how much you know about Eastern medicine, but it's that quietness, that receptiveness that's open to possibilities that we're not unconsciously aware of. So this is a time, and I think we're being forced during this time of isolation, all of us, whether we're artists, physicians, lay people of all types, that we're being asked to be still, to be quiet, and it's in that stillness that we're actually going to receive the information of the new possibilities. Mm-hmm. So holding that, this is an exciting time, is going to be very important for everyone.
Yeah, and I think that at the beginning, when I was talking about feeling guilt for not wanting to dance, or feeling like I was judging myself, I think that was me just trying to keep going and keep moving and keep not stop and think and reflect. And it was kind of in the moments that I did reflect, like conversations like these, that you have the opportunity to zoom out a little bit and realize what's going on and understand and analyze, and then you can move forward in a way that feels less frantic.
And yeah, and you also, in that guilt, you actually described it in your post as fraud. Mm-hmm. So that's self-conscious. That is having the ability to look at yourself. People who feel like fraud, or that's called I'm trying to think, imposter syndrome. Mm-hmm. Only people who are already successful feel that. Mm. That's kind of an awareness. So you're actually, by feeling like a fraud, already know the power that you had and had, and the knowledge. So imposter syndrome is a very real thing that affects all of us when we're sitting at a table and we're with all of these great people and we think to ourselves, what am I doing here?
Right.
I mean, that's what came up for me when I read this. It's like you already know deep inside that you have what it takes. And so the self-reflection can allow you to say, I mean, for people to even ask that question shows high level of awareness, because most people who are frauds have no clue that they're a fraud. I mean, they do know, but they never ask the question, am I a fraud?
Right, right.
So
Yeah.
it just struck me.
And
That's
I
very
think
interesting.
that's conditional, because like that's what we do as dancers. Like there's always this perfection thing, right? I got to do this right. This has got to be this way. This is, and so anything that deviates from that norm, it leaves a void, right? It leaves this sort of question of value. And we were talking about value earlier. You know, success looks very differently for all bodies. And that's the thing. It's like that's the kind of keep coming back to what is our value and how do we find and are congruent with what that value is. And I think, you know, that's one of the other questions to re-examine is, I love my body in motion, and perhaps referring to it, isn't that enough, right? The wellness that you did in the early on, you know, isn't that enough to just love to dance?
Yeah.
Isn't it enough to just love the body in motion? There's incredible value in the simplicity of acknowledging, I'm a dancer. I love to dance. I love to move.
Right.
That's enough.
Yeah.
And especially now, I think that question, as was raised earlier in the year or in this sort of wellness season, that you know, that's okay. That's a positive thing, and we don't have to, you know, we don't have to hold our leg up for 30 years, right? It's enough to just move and maybe be at 45 to still find that joy of what it means, you know. And I think that reframing, rewiring, and understanding that movement is really wellness. And if you're moving, you are well. You are wealthy, right? And that is just fundamentally what is needed in these times, and how we honor ourselves, right?
Yeah, and it's definitely like a tool that you can use to connect to the present moment, however you're feeling. And it doesn't, you know, there's no rules. That's the thing, that's the beauty of movement, as much as we like to throw them on, that it can be very liberating if you let it.
Yeah, and I think that it also, in this time, if we can offer up to our bodies gratitude, because our bodies, especially as dancers, have done so much work for us, right? How do we thank our body? How do we listen to our body? How do we listen to what the body needs? And stop having expectations of our body and start asking our body what we can do for it. And I think we've asked so much of a body to have this success, to be the great dancer that you are, right? And now, in turn, how do I honor my body and ask it what it needs? And that creates a beautiful feedback loop. Again, movement through dialoguing, a consciousness, an awareness. And in that awareness, we understand our importance and our value.
Yeah, I feel like I've been doing that a lot with my students, asking them what they need, asking them how they're feeling, but I'm realizing that I'm neglecting that with my own body. And so I think that's a good reminder to check in. And
a lot of us do it. A lot of us neglect our own bodies, and that's one of the things, you know, we talk about in these wellness episodes, is a lot of people feel completely out of control right now. But finding control in one area of your life actually mind hacks the whole entire system and makes you feel like you have control over other aspects of life. And for people who are not dancers, you know, who are sitting here, it's still important to ask what your body needs. You do, most of us who are watching this have the ability to have good nutrition, good source of water, the ability to sleep. So right now, it's really important to take care of your physical body, whether you're a dancer or not, because a lot of people are neglecting, they're just feeling like so much loss of control that they're letting go of everything, and they're
Mhm.
talking about the pandemic 15 and everybody can't sleep. And, you know, so when I'm hearing you all talk about listen to your body, I just want everyone listening to know that it's important for all of us to ask our body what it needs right now as far as movement, sleep, water, hydration. So,
Yeah, I'm doing research on time. Clearly, I've been bringing it up, right? This idea of time. Do you know, and Keith and I were talking about that people age quicker at a higher altitude than people at sea level. That's one thing. And so because they experience time differently. There's a whole reason for that, but I'm going to go to where I was about to. The research now that I'm looking into is that movement allows you to experience time slower.
Mm.
Right? If you're an entity or an object that is not moving, you experience time more quickly than an object that's experiencing time. Yes, meaning you age quicker if you're not moving. You age less if you are moving. And so oftentimes you hear people like saying, "Oh, dancers look so young, right?" Or they do, yeah, because they are in motion. And
Mm.
it is a physics. It's an actual thing that a body in motion stays in motion, right? And it meaning its functions, its systems. And so, not right now at a time to keep ourselves healthy, we need to move, and we need to create a new relationship with our movement to be healthy, and healthy in so many ways, right? And that, Keith, you can talk about that in terms of traditional Chinese medicine. Is that you know dance is wellness, movement is wellness, and it is life. It's part of what we're doing, and that's just not some ooh yeah ooh. It's physics. It's actual research that's out there, and that's what's really beautiful. Movement is a bridge to all kinds of information and intelligence. And we have movement intelligence in our body and in our structures and in our beings. Yes, we are hardwired and soft-wired, if you will, for all kinds of intelligences and all kinds of wellness that is stimulated and inspired by movement.
yep, and we've talked about this many times. I mean, movement is the biggest, it's the easiest and most effective way to de-stress, to get stress out of the body, because stress is actually stored in the body. Trauma is stored in the body. And right now, so many people are traumatized. So it's really important to physically move the body, because we think of trauma and stress as in our mind. We think it as thoughts, but those are emotions, and emotions are fleeting. It's important to acknowledge the emotion, but the stress and the trauma is stored in the physical musculature. And the easiest way to process that and transform it is through movement, which is going to bring us to our lightning round, because normally at this point, me and Mary Mitchell do a lightning round. I don't know if you know this, because I don't know if y'all have watched them, but
Oh, yeah.
I got questions for you.
Okay.
All right, let's do it. Austen, what's your favorite thing to do for self-care?
Going for a walk outside.
Scott?
Mine is walking with my dogs.
Yep.
Long walks with dogs.
Austen, what do you love to do first thing in the morning?
I meditate in the morning.
Very good. Scott?
Same thing. It's that quiet time you talked about, that stillness of everything is quiet. You go through what I call morning rituals, and part of it is a meditative and writing, journaling process, and just a quiet morning that is just centering.
Mm-hmm. Austen, what's your favorite food?
Ooh, rice. I love rice.
I do too, actually. Scott, now I better know this.
Well, I think I'm going to give you everything. It's broccoli rabe with Edos. Edos, I have to tell you. That's my go-to garlic.
Pasta with broccoli rabe and
penne and cheese.
That's delicious. That sounds great.
Lunchtime, right?
I thought sure you were going to say Lou Malnati's pizza.
Yeah, but Edo's being here for so long, I think it's the lifeblood now.
Mm-hmm. All right, now I'm going to start with you, Scott, so you don't have time to think. Beach or mountains?
What?
Beach or mountains?
I would say ultimately mountains.
Austen?
Me too. I feel like this is an unpopular opinion, but
yeah. I'm a mountain person too. Although we age quicker up there.
That's true.
Not if we move. Not if we move.
Not if you move. Scott, where do you think of as home?
Oh Lord, I have to say, I think that Richmond is home. For a long time, my friends, I would never call Richmond home when I moved here, and when I said Richmond was home, they almost died. And so, so I think that it has become my home, and I think this is it.
Hmm. Austen?
I think New York is the home that I created for myself as an adult, but Toronto is always home.
Toronto, great city. Scott, how do you deal with being angry?
Oh Lord. Um, I think I have dealt with it in many ways, and hopefully now I'm dealing with it in terms of just quieting down and removing myself. I like to say I go to my deep place and try to just I do kind of quiet and shut down and remove myself so that I'm not reactionary, and I try to just process and digest to so as not to hurt or offend or harm anyone.
Austen, how do you deal with being angry?
I was going to say something pretty similar. I think I deal with being angry best by myself. Yeah, just take myself out of the situation and breathe.
I gotcha. That's a good way to do it. Austen, what sound do you love?
Ooh, ice cubes in a glass.
Huh, that's a good one.
Summery. It's usually, you're outside. I just really like that sound.
My ice just melted. Scott, what sound do you love?
It's the pop of a champagne cork.
You got that right. You got that right. Last question. Scott, if you were a spice, what spice would you be?
I would like to say I'd be basil.
All right. Austen.
Trader Joe's has this really fun everything bagel.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Yeah, I use it for everything. That's like my everyday. I'm gonna go with that. I don't know if it counts, but that's my answer.
It does count. Oh my God, that's a great one. I have a jar of it at home
So
on the counter. It goes
It's
good with
so
everything. So we're winding down Wellness Wednesday. So I want everyone to know that both of you teach online. Austen, how can people find you?
On Instagram, austin.sora. I teach for AEV Studios and the Ballet Burn, and I'm just starting up a new venture called Studio A for emerging dancers, high school and college age dancers, to learn about the logistics of the biz.
The
So
logistics of the biz.
yeah.
Scott, you offer some online courses that are free every week, and then you're going to have some classes coming that are for pay, but your free classes are really popular. Can you tell people how to access those?
If you go to Facebook, there's a page called the Elemental Body Alignment System, and you can join that page, like that page, and sort of get all the information. I post basically weekly what classes are going to be. The schedule right now is Monday and Wednesdays from 1 to 2, and we do the EBIS flow class. But what we're going to do, because VCU is getting ready to start, I'm going to maybe change the format. So just come and get in touch. And those classes are always free to the community, especially now during this time, because it's wreaked havoc on many people's financial well-being. So it's a way to sort of share and be in practice with one another and basically process all these concepts and ideas of the form and whatnot. So yeah.
It's a great class. All right, next week we're going to be back 1 o'clock next Wednesday with Caitlin Kinnunen. I hope I said her name right. And Isabel McKella. They were the stars of the Broadway musical The Prom. And actually one of them was nominated, maybe both of them, for the Tony last year. So they're going to be with us next week. Thank you, artists striving to end poverty. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Austen.
Thank you.
Everybody have a great Wednesday.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Well,